Hello, my lunatic friend. It's the Crypto Lunatic from the Luna Cafe, the channel for crypto newbies and for degens to find coins that are unpumped. Now, today I'm going to change the tone of what I talk about. I'm going to talk about the case for Bitcoin. I'm going to talk about the global economy. I'm going to explain how we're living in an absolute scam and that every government is ripping you off and printing money out of thin air. I'm going to have a lighter hearted look at why people are drawn to Bitcoin. And in the background, you can see three very interesting figures. The middle figure, 114 trillion, is the gross domestic product of the entire planet. That's how much money we make every year. That's how much money that every government makes. The top figure, 324 trillion, is how much we owe as a planet, how much borrowed money there is. And the bottom percentage, 284%, is how much out of sync we are between what we actually earn and what we owe. So I'm going to explain the global Ponzi scheme that we're living in, which is fiat currency or cash as you know it, what governments are doing, and what the case for Bitcoin is, why people are moving towards Bitcoin, and how your bank and your government are absolutely ripping you off. Now, I don't know how long this video is going to stay up, whether it's going to be allowed to stay up or not. I'm just going to give you some facts, and we're going to do it a bit tongue in cheek. We're going to have a bit of fun with it today because I've been asking for some updates. And quite honestly, the global economy is the piss up in the brewery that they couldn't even organize. So picture the global economy as a bloke who's been on a 50-year bender, racking up bar tabs that he can't pay, and now he's trying to borrow more to buy the pub. Global debt in 2025 is a staggering 324 trillion, according to posts on X. And the world's GDP, the total value of everything we make, is around 114 trillion. That's a global debt to GDP ratio of roughly 284%, meaning that we owe nearly three times what we earn. So imagine telling your gran, I spent £300 for every £100 I made, and I'm still buying rounds. She'd slap you with her knitting needles. So the International Monetary Fund reckons global public debt alone is heading to 100% of GDP by 2030, up from 95% in 2025, thanks to governments spending like they've won the lottery, but forgot to buy a ticket. The US and UK are the rogue gallery of all countries and are leading the charge in the financial abyss with debt piles so high that they make Everest look like a speed bump. Let's break it down in a little chart, and that's the one behind me. You can see it there. The chart says it all. The world is drowning in debt and nobody's got a life jacket. Now let's zoom in on the worst offenders, including the US and UK, and point the fingers at the governments that have got us there. So the top 20 debt disasters, who's the biggest muppet? So here's a roll call to the top 20 countries who've got the highest debt to GDP ratios in 2025, based on the International Monetary Fund's and World Population Review data. These are nations that have spent like they're auditioning for Brewster's Millions, but forgot the part about giving it away. So number one is Lebanon, and their debt to GDP ratio is 283%. Then Sudan, 256%. Japan, first world country, 255%. Number four is Singapore with 168%. Eritrea, 164%. Greece, 162%. Argentina, 155%. Venezuela, 146%. Italy, 137%. Bhutan, 123%. The US, 122%. And they're in 11th. Below them are Bahrain, Cuba, Cape Verde, France, Spain, Canada, Sao Tome, Sri Lanka, Belgium, and in 21st place with 101% is the UK. So the Lebanon, they've got so much debt, they're borrowing money to pay the interest on the money they borrowed to pay the interest. It's like a financial Russian doll, but no one's laughing. And with Sudan at 256%, their economy's so broken, they're using IOUs as wallpaper. So the culprits, the governments who spent like drunk uncles, let's point the finger here. So Japan, 255%. Back in the 90s, Japan's stock market crashed harder than a drunk at a wedding. The government under the Liberal Democrats Party decided to bail out everybody with low interest loans and stimulus packages. Fast forward to 2025, they're still at it. With an aging population and no plan to stop, it's looked like at their economy and said, let's make it a debt theme park. The prime ministers like Shinzo Abe between 2012 and 2020 kept the spending tabs open and the Abenomics, and it's been a debt party ever since. The US at 122%. So the US is like the mate who borrows your car, crashes it, and then asks for your bike. The debt to GDP ratio was 110% in 2022 and climbed to 122% by 2025, with 37.95 trillion in national debt against a 30.51 trillion GDP. Blame goes to the Bush administration with the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, the Obama administration, who bailed out the banks in 2008 and kept stimulus flowing, the Trump administration with more tax cuts and COVID relief, and the Biden administration with their infrastructure bills and more COVID cash. Because why not? The US can print dollars so they can become invincible, but interest payments are now a budget black hole. They're spending so much that even their debt has debt. In the UK is just over 100% mark, with 2.8 trillion in debt against a 2.7 trillion GDP. The 2008 financial crisis started with a spiral, with Gordon Brown's Labour government bailing out the banks. Then came austerity under Cameron's Tories, who didn't cut the debt, but did cut public services to ribbons. Brexit added chaos, and COVID relief under Boris Johnson piled on more. Now Labour's back in 2025, and the Postonics claim they're borrowing 16 billion a month just for interest. The UK's economy is like a tea party where they've sold the teapot to pay for the biscuits. So the Lebanon, 283%, years of corruption and mismanagement, plus 2020 economic collapse turned the Lebanon into a financial zombie. Governments under multiple prime ministers since the 2000s just kept borrowing. In Sudan, where there's 256%, civil war and a transitional government post 2019 have left Sudan's economy in tatters. They're borrowing to survive, not to thrive. And Greece, the Eurozone between 2009 and 2015, saw Greece's debt skyrocket to dodgy accounting and overspending under the PASOK and the new democracy governments. Austerity didn't help much. So Bitcoin is the lifeboat in the financial shipwreck. So now here's the bit where your gran perks up and says, tell me about this Bitcoin thing. Imagine money that doesn't rely on governments, who spends like they're allergic to budgets. Bitcoin's a digital currency created in 2009 with a fixed supply of 21 million coins. No central bank can print more, unlike the US dollar, the UK pound, which lose value faster than a politician's promises. Since 1971, when the US ditched the gold standard, fiat currencies have been bleeding value. $1 in 1971 is worth about 15 cents today. Bitcoin's the opposite. It's scarce, like gold. You can't send it anywhere without a bank, or you can send it anywhere without a bank. So let's put this in context. In 2010, you could have got the Bitcoin price to the dollar was about 30 cents. In 2015, it was $430. In 2020, it was $29,000. And in 2025, it's now over $100,000. So Bitcoin has outperformed every single asset, bar none. And not just outperformed them, it's absolutely blown them away. as governments start looking there as a hedge against the wavering dollars and sterling and euros and yen. So if you look at the chart, if you bought Bitcoin in 2010, you'd be sipping cocktails on a yacht. If you'd kept dollars, you'd be queuing at Aldi. Governments are printing money to cover debts, making your savings worthless. Bitcoin says, sod that, I'm limited, secure, and nobody can mess with me. It's like telling the Bank of England to shove their interest rates where the sun doesn't shine. So why Bitcoin? Because when Japan's 255% debt to GDP and the US is at 122% and the UK at 101%, trusting their currencies is like trusting a fox to guard your hens. Every time they print more money, your grand's pension buys less tea. Bitcoin's blockchain, a digital ledger no one can fake, means that no government can inflate it away. It's the financial equivalent of telling the system you're fired. It's a story the world needs to wake up to. So here's the deal. In terms your gran would get, if the world's governments have spent so much money that they don't have, that basically they're writing checks with their bums. That's 324 trillion debt pile. It's growing faster than the reality TV star's ego. The US, UK, and Japan, pick a country, they're all guilty. They're borrowing to pay interest on borrowing, like financial version of Inception, but nobody wakes up. Bitcoin's your way out, not just money, but it's the big up yours to the system that's been fleecing you since your gran was in nappies. The charts show it, debt's through the roof, and fiat's losing value. And Bitcoin's laughing all the way to the bank. The world needs to wake up to this debt bomb before it goes off, because one day you're going to wake up and everything that you own is going to be worthless when the bubble pops. The global economy is so deep in debt. If it was a person, it'd be Jeremy Kyle begging for a bailout. Bitcoin's the only one not crying. When the world's debt hits 324 trillion, you don't need a financial advisor. You need an exorcist or Bitcoin. So there you go, my friends. That's the brutal truth, the laugh out loud case for why Bitcoin is the antidote to bad government policy, bad government spending, and bad government position towards you. And your money sitting in banks is losing its spending power, and banks are negligently printing more and doing stuff that is not right with your money. And the thing is, waking up to the financial system and what it actually is the big thing that most people in cryptocurrency and Bitcoin are in there for. Bitcoin is your hedge against government overspending and inflation. And there you have it, my lunatic friends, the case for Bitcoin in a slightly tongue-in-cheek way. So if you ever wondered why lunatics like me are getting into Bitcoin, well, now you have it, because the global economy is a Ponzi scheme and we're waking up to it slowly. One day you'll wake up and the whole house of cards will collapse and you'll be sitting on the ashes unless you've hedged against the system, and Bitcoin is that hedge. So, my lunatic friends, there you have it, my little summary of where we're at, and hopefully that helps. And if you've enjoyed this little summary and you want more of my lunatic reviews, then please do subscribe to the channel. And if you want another little video, you'll find that just there. But stay lunatic, have fun, and make money with crypto.